Rocky Theater and the Republican presidential debate. On to the next round of questions. Jerry has the next question.
Senator Santorum, we're in the upper Midwest, heart of the American auto industry. The Auto Alliance says the state of Wisconsin, where we are tonight, is home to 176 auto supplier companies. Back in 2008, you opposed the use of federal bailout funds for automakers as proposed then by the Bush administration. The automakers survived. In retrospect, do you still think that was the right position?
Absolutely. Look, I'm a capitalist, not a corporatist. I'm not someone who believes that we should be bailing out corporations, whether they're auto industries or banks. And it is simply a matter that the auto industry would have survived. It would have survived through a bankruptcy process instead of Washington picking a winner and a loser. And in this case, the losers were the bondholders and the winners were the unions. That's fine. They did it. The unions survived. We have not survived in continuing to grow manufacturing jobs. We have a president and an economy right now that is choking our ability to be able to compete. I'm one of the few people up here who actually believes that we need a level playing field when it comes to manufacturing. That means a good tax code, a good regulatory environment, low energy prices, better opportunities for workers to get training. And also, I'm a supporter of the XM Bank. Everybody else on this stage, everybody else I think in the entire field is opposed to it. How can you come out and say I'm for manufacturing when a majority of Republican congressmen and senators supported the XM Bank because it means jobs for American workers here in America? The fact is that we've seen already GE lose jobs here in America and just move those jobs to France and Hungary. We have a right as a country to compete with other countries that have export financing. Every major manufacturer, 60 countries, competes against America, wants to take our jobs, and we have every Republican candidate. You want to talk about communicating to workers here in Wisconsin? Ask them why we're tying one hand behind our back and saying go out and compete.
Thank you, Senator Santorum.
Governor Huckabee, you differ from many of your GOP opponents on the stage tonight over accepting Syrian refugees into this country. You have said, we don't have an obligation to just open our doors. As the Islamic State continues to expand, slaughtering and crucifying Christians, including women and children, refugees continue to flee their land by the thousands. Should America open its doors to accept any refugees in this country? If so, how many?
Sandra, I've been concerned that this administration has not done anything to help stop the slaughter of Christians. We didn't help the Kurds. We said we would. But the idea that we're just going to open our doors and we have no idea who these people are, what we do know is that only 1 out of 5 of the so-called Syrian refugees who went into Europe were actually Syrian. Many of them, we had no idea who they were. They weren't Syrian. Are we going to open the doors so that ISIS people will come on in and we'll give them a place to stay and a good sandwich and medical benefits? My gosh, we were $19 trillion in debt. We can't even afford to take care of Americans. So if we're going to do something for the Syrians, let's find out who they really are, and the ones that are really in danger, let's help build an encampment for them, but closer to where they live rather than bringing them here when they don't know the language, the culture, and frankly, if we've got as many homeless people as we have, I'm not sure this makes any sense. So let's do it where we can best help them, send them some food. But let's ask the Saudis to step up. I'm really tired of Americans being the only ones asked to do all the heavy lifting when it comes to charity, when quite frankly, my number one concern right now is taking care of the fact that Americans are taking it in the gut without jobs, many of them working 2 and 3 part-time jobs. And if America wants to do something great, let's get our economy growing again, stabilize the dollar, and we'll be in a much better position to help people around the world.
All right, Governor Huckabee, thank you.
Governor Christie, China is stealing our technology. China is pirating our intellectual property. And China is hacking into our computers, spying on American corporations, and spying on our citizens. China also slaps tariffs on U.S. goods, making it harder for us to sell our products. How are you going to stop it?
Well, let's start with this. Remember why we're in the position we're in with China. Because an absolutely weak and feckless foreign policy that was engineered by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. That's why we're in the position we're in. Because, Trish, the Chinese don't take us seriously, and why should they? Why should they? They hacked into the American government's personnel file and took millions of records and cyber warfare against this country. I'm one of the victims of that hack. They took my social security number, my fingerprints as a former United States attorney that was on file in there. And what has this president done? Not one thing. Let me be really clear about what I would do. If the Chinese commit cyber warfare against us, they are going to see cyber warfare like they have never seen before. And that is a closed society in China where they're hiding information from their own people. The information we take, we'll make sure all the Chinese people see it. That'll have some real fun in Beijing when we start showing them how they're spending their money in China. And one last thing, I'll tell you this. They're building those artificial islands in the South China Sea, and the president won't, up until recently, wouldn't sail a ship within 12 miles or fly a plane over it. I'll tell you this, the first thing I'll do with the Chinese is I'll fly Air Force One over those islands. They'll know we mean business.
Governor Jindal, there's a new trade deal the Obama administration has completed with 11 other Pacific nations. The U.S. Trade Representative's office says that deal will cut 18,000 different tariffs on American goods sent to the Pacific. It will cut tariffs on goods made in your state of Louisiana by as much as 40%. You've been a skeptic about this deal. Now that the details are public, are you going to be for it?
I was absolutely a skeptic of giving this president more power. He negotiated a bad deal with Iran. He breaks the law routinely. I don't know why Congress would want to concede more authority to him. Look, this trade deal is 6,000 pages long. Unlike Obamacare, I think we should read it before we decide whether we're to vote for it or not vote for it. I am for trade deals, but I want to make sure they're fair trade deals. I want to come back to something that Chris had said earlier. Look, I absolutely agree we've got to beat Hillary Clinton. But just sending any Republicans not good enough. We've had a Republican majority in the Senate and the House. What has changed? If we send another big government Republican to the White House, we will not do enough to fix what is wrong in this country. Chris, I think records matter. I think the way we govern matter. Under your leadership in New Jersey, your budget's gone up 15%. It's gone down 26% in Louisiana. It has gone up $5 billion in New Jersey. It's gone down $9 billion in Louisiana. In New Jersey, you've had 9 credit downgrades, setting a record. We've had 8 credit upgrades in Louisiana. My point is this. If politicians say they're going to be conservative, they say they're going to cut spending, but they don't do it, why should we send them to D.C.? It gets harder, not easier, when we send them to D.C. Let's not be a second liberal party. Let's actually cut government spending. Let's grow the American economy. Let's not just beat Hillary. Let's elect a conservative to the White House, not just any Republican.
Governor Christie?
I'd say, Jerry, it's interesting. If you go to New Jersey, they'll call me lots of different things. A liberal's not one of them. And I would say this. I have great respect for Bobby's record in Louisiana. I think he's been a wonderful governor, and I think he's provided outstanding leadership for that state, and I respect him for what he's done. And I think that all of us deserve that same level of respect. And my point is this. You know, the differences between me and Bobby Jindal, we can talk about those, and obviously Bobby wants to spend a lot of time tonight talking about that. I'll tell you what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what's going to happen to this country if we have another 4 years of Barack Obama's policies. And by the way, it'll be even worse, because Hillary Clinton is running so far to the left to try to catch up to her socialist opponent, Bernie Sanders, it's hard to even see her anymore. The fact is that we better be focused on it. I'll tell you what I'll bring to the table. The fact that I've won in a blue state, that I've won in a state that has 750,000 more Democrats than Republicans, that I won in a state for re-election after governing as a pro-life conservative and got 61% of the vote. That's the person you want on the stage prosecuting the case against Hillary Clinton.
But wait a minute, records matter. Records matter. Yes, we've got to beat Hillary Clinton, but Chris, it's also true that you expanded food stamps at a time that we've got record numbers of Americans on food stamps. It's also true you caved into Obamacare, you expanded Medicaid. We've got a choice in front of us. This is an important debate. This is not about comparing Louisiana to New Jersey or Bobby to Chris. This is an important debate for the American people. This is supposed to be an economics debate. Let's have a debate. Do we want to grow government, or do we want to grow the American economy? Do we want to grow dependence on government, or do we want to grow good-paying jobs in the private sector?
Right.
You don't grow the economy by putting more people on food stamps, more people in Medicaid. You grow the economy by cutting government, cutting spending. That's what we've done in Louisiana. You haven't done that in New Jersey. We need a conservative, not a big government Republican in D.C.
Governor Christie, last word briefly.
Sure. let me just say this. It's interesting. I complimented Bobby. Imagine how much time he'd want if I actually criticized him. I mean, the fact is, he's done a nice job down in Louisiana, and I don't have any problem with the job he's done. I've cut spending $2 billion except for our pension and health care in New Jersey, which is driven predominantly by Obamacare. We have reduced the number of employees we have in the state payroll by 15%. But you know what? The people out there don't care about any of that. You know what they care about? They care about who's going to be able to beat Hillary Clinton, who's going to keep their eye on the ball. I'm going to keep my eye on the ball.
Thank you both governors.
Next question to you, Governor.
This is how we move our country forward. Look, this is not about between me and Chris. This
I'd like to get that opportunity.
All right, Governor Jindal,
we're going to be the party of cutting government
Let me get in here, because the next question is to you, and it's on Obamacare. It is still unpopular with the American people. You've seen the polls. They show nearly half the country still opposes this law. You have been critical of your GOP opponents, some of them standing on the stage tonight, others later, notably Ted Cruz, for not having comprehensive plans. You say you do. What specifically makes your plan to replace Obamacare better than the opponents, some of them standing next to you?
Well, look, only one other candidate actually has a plan. That's Jeb Bush, and he creates a new entitlement program. My plan actually gets rid of all of Obamacare. It's great that Senator Cruz will shut down the government over Obamacare, but he still hasn't given us his plan to get rid of it. It's great that other Republicans talk about getting rid of it. When you go to a town hall in Iowa or New Hampshire, ask them how they're going to actually get rid of it. My plan has been online for over a year. Gets rid of all of Obamacare, reduces the cost. It actually puts Americans, their patients, and their doctors back in control. And it actually helps those that really need this help. But this is one of the most critical issues we face domestically. Look, right now, I'm the only candidate running that refused to expand Medicaid. I'm the only one that turned down, that did what we could to fight Obamacare. This is an important point. And look, I appreciate Chris's nice compliments to me. And Chris, look, you've buried well. I love Mary Pat. But this isn't about me and Chris. This is about the country, and this is about what direction. This is the most important election in our lifetimes. Folks, a couple of years ago, they told us, give them the Republican majorities in the House and the Senate, they'd stop Obamacare and amnesty and the bad Iran deal. Nothing changed. If they fooled us once, shame on them. If they fooled us twice, shame on us. Don't let them fool us again. Chris, look, I'll give you a ribbon for participation and a juice box, but in the real world, it's about results. It's about actually cutting government spending, not just talking about cutting government spending.
Yep.
Governor Jindal, thank you.
Yeah, listen, we've stopped Obamacare in New Jersey because we refused to participate in the federal exchange. But here's the bigger issue. What do you think is going to happen when Hillary Clinton's elected president of the United States? The woman who tried to impose health care on this country over 20 years ago, and she was stopped then by a strong group of Republicans and an American public that said no thank you. What she will do is move us towards a single-payer system. She will completely nationalize the federal health care system. That's what she wanted to do 20 years ago, and I guarantee you that's what she'll do if you give her the keys to the White House one more time. The fact is we need someone who knows how to beat Democrats, in a Democratic area. I've done it twice as governor of New Jersey, and Hillary Clinton doesn't want 1 minute on that stage with me next September when I'm debating her and prosecuting her for her vision for America.
Let me settle this argument.
Senator Santorum, I have a question for you. Just about everybody agrees that the nation's infrastructure is in bad shape. Urban highway congestion costs the economy more than $100 billion annually. Nearly 1 in 4 bridges in the national highway system is structurally deficient or obsolete. Congress is working on a 6-year highway bill to try to fix this problem. It only funds it for about 3 years. Should Americans be asked to pay more in federal gas taxes to address this problem?
I'll answer that in a second, but I want to answer this other problem, because this is a real legitimate debate between Chris and Bobby. You have someone who says we need someone who can win in a blue state, and Bobby says we need a real principled conservative. 92% conservative voting record, and unlike some of the other senators that Bobby mentioned who hasn't done anything to cut federal spending, I was actually the author of welfare reform, which is the only time we've ever seen a federal entitlement actually cut. We cut it. Senate did exactly what every conservative says they want to do. We took the program, we eliminated the federal entitlement, we block granted it to the state, we capped the amount of money, cut it by 10%, and then put 2 requirements, work and time limits. We need to do that with the rest of the means-tested federal entitlements. I've done it. And I did it with a bipartisan support in the House and Senate, and after fighting 2 presidential vetoes by Bill Clinton. So I had a Democratic president. We had to get this through. No record of accomplishment. I agree with the folks who are the Congress in this race. I have a record of accomplishment of being a conservative on everything, national security, on moral and cultural issues, on the economy, and twice won a blue state. The first time I beat the author of Hillary Care. I had Bill and Hillary in my state. James Carville managed the race against me. A state with 1 million more Democrats and Republicans. And I ran on health savings accounts, on private sector health care as a conservative, pro-life, pro-family, and I won. And then in 2000, I was the only senator to win a state as a conservative that George Bush lost. You want someone who can win Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio with a conservative message, I'm your guy.
Senator, I don't think we got to infrastructure, but I understand.
I'll be happy to answer that if you give me the time.
That's right. To do the things you're talking about, that you're all talking about, getting things done in Washington, you have to work with the other side. So a question. Who in Congress do you most admire on the Democratic side? I need one name from each of you. Let's start with Governor Jindal.
Look, we can waste our time, and I think this is why people are so frustrated with the last debate, with these kinds of silly questions. We've only got a certain amount of time to talk about the economy. Let me use my time to say that I want to fire everybody in D.C. in both parties. I think we need term limits, get rid of them all, and make them live under the same rules they pass for the rest of us.
Governor Huckabee?
Well, since we're not going to answer the question, let me just remind everybody, tomorrow is Veterans Day. And here's what I would like to remind everybody. The VA has been a disaster in large part because the people in Congress have never bothered to fix it, and this president has certainly not. Let me finish, please. I'm going to ask you this. What would happen if the Congress and the president had to get their health care from the VA? We would fix the problem, and we would fix Congress.
Governor Christie?
I'll continue in the pattern and just say... And just say this to everybody, since it seems to be an open question. I'll tell you the thing that disturbs me the most about what's going on with the Democratic Party in Washington, that they're not standing behind our police officers across this country, that they're allowing lawlessness to reign in this country. I spent 7 years of my life in law enforcement, and here's what every law enforcement, all 700,000 of them, should know tonight. When President Christie's in the Oval Office, I'll have your back.
Senator Santorum?
I'm going to answer two questions for the price of one. The infrastructure question, the answer is we need to get the federal government out of this infrastructure business other than vital economic highways. It's been said that if we cut the gas tax to 3 to 5 cents and send the rest back to the states and just take care of the federal infrastructure that's vital for our economy, we don't need the federal government in the road business that it is today. Number one. Number two, you know who I respect in the Democratic Party? You know why I respect them? Because they fight. Because they're not willing to back down, and they're willing to stand up and fight and win. And so I respect them because they are willing to take it to us.
Thank you, Senator Santorum.
Well, Regan did work with Tip O'Neill. Anyway, we are going to take a quick break. Coming up, one of the top issues for voters, how much you're paying in taxes. We are live from Milwaukee with the Republican presidential debate. See you right back here.